I don't issue motions, I issue orders.
We call them motions. I don't issue motions, I issue orders. These are orders in limine and have been ordered since before this trial started.
Alex Jones is being sued for defamation, which means he is being accused of libel and slander toward the Sandy Hook parents, the parents of the children who were killed in the Sandy Hook massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Alex Jones said that they were crisis actors, that their children were fake, that there was no such shooting. And thousands of Alex Jones rabid fans went after these people and called them crisis actors and members of the globalist cabal and everything under the sun. And Alex Jones got a tremendous following for this kind of misinformation and other misinformation as well. And so they're suing him. And Alex Jones, if you recall, did not respond to the suit. So he already lost. There was a default judgment for the parents. So the parents have already won the case. Now they're in the penalty phase, where a jury is trying to figure out just how much money should Alex Jones owe these parents for what he put them through. Now, what is perjury? When you testify in a case, even a civil case, so we have a dual jurisdiction system in America. We have what's known as a criminal court and we have a civil court. This is a civil court, but they all happen in U.S. courts, okay? Our courts function and they do both types of trials, all right? Now, when you are testifying, whether it's a civil court case or a criminal court case, you are put under oath, where you swear under penalty of law that to tell the truth, right? And if it's provable that you knowingly lied, you have committed the crime of perjury, whether you're doing a criminal case, testimony, or a civil case. Knowingly lying is a criminal offense. So they have to prove that you lied intentionally, which could be very difficult to do. But this might be the exact type of case where they could get away with it, where they could do it. Can the judge go after him for the pedophile comments? That's slander. That's defamation. The judge could sue him for defamation. Furthermore, she could also find him in criminal contempt of court, right? You have to show a certain level of decorum and respect to a court that you are being called to testify in, right? So if he's going out and attacking the court and the judge personally and slandering and defaming her, she might be able to find him in contempt of court. And when you are found in contempt of court, she's also the trial judge. This is also a thing that people may not know, but a judge is also the trial judge and the finder of fact for contempt of court charges. So she could say, I charge you with contempt of court. I find you guilty of contempt of court. I sentence you to 2 days in jail and have him taken to jail immediately. So that is one of the most places where, you know, a judge in their courtroom is a situation where you don't want to fuck around with them because of exactly that kind of power. And you can be put, you know, depending on the level of your contempt, you know, the punishment can escalate from there. I tend to believe that Jones' lawyers saw the January 6th text and submitted the text intentionally. No team of lawyers would be so completely incompetent. Never attribute to malice what incompetence can explain. I just think the lawyer fucked up. I'm not going to give him some sort of like, he was actually doing the morally right thing. Can he get a mistrial for his lawyer's incompetencies? Well, that is typically what you're talking about is ineffective assistance of counsel. That has to do with a criminal case. I'm not aware of civil cases where that's actually found to be a thing. And by the way, it's debatable. It's debatable, chat. Maybe the lawyer thought it was a legal stratagem. You know, I don't know. It's debatable. His lawyer asked him if he on the stand if he was satisfied with their performance, and he said yes. Why do you think Jones' lawyer failed to claw back the evidence once the breach came to light? Because the guy waited until he probably didn't draw his attention to the mistake, and then he waited the statutory period for him to claim privilege on any of the items. And when that period had passed, then the parents' attorneys could bring that evidence to light as voluntarily given to them.
He loves to bring up the bankruptcy issue because he purports to be broke. But what I thought was really fascinating about today's testimony was that he was asked by the plaintiff's attorney about the amount of money, the revenue that Alex Jones and his company brings in. And it's telling how Alex Jones has really ripped a page out of the book of all these corporations who do terrible things. They get sued, and when it looks like they're about to pay out a massive settlement, they'll file for bankruptcy to avoid having to pay out a big settlement. He's taking a page out of their book and he's trying to do the same thing. The question is whether he will be able to do that. And what I love about the plaintiff's attorney is that he's done his homework and he has revealed, it's incredibly depressing, but he's revealed just how much money Alex Jones brings in. Somewhere around $740,000 a day, close to $1 million a day, just by selling these garbage supplements that are not FDA approved, that have no evidence of its efficacy. It doesn't matter. Apparently there are enough people who watch his show and who are convinced that these supplements might make them Insta hard, that they spend their hard-earned money.
Wait, what? Does Alex Jones sell boner shit? It's funny how he claims he's broke, yet he filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which typically means you have significant assets and income, but you have overexceeded your debt load, meaning his business is good, but he's dog shit at managing debt. There's all sorts of different types of bankruptcy. Typically, you're not going to be eligible for Chapter 7 if you have a certain level of assets or income at all, period. So, yeah, he's obviously not like a standard person who got fired from the job, has no income, and got $50K in credit cards, right? Or, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
The reason why the judge made a default judgment here in finding him guilty for defamation is because during a lawsuit like this, a civil lawsuit like this, the plaintiffs ask for certain documents. It's part of the discovery process. And Alex Jones would not comply. He would not hand over those documents. Alex Jones was asked under oath whether he had any text message exchanges in which he discussed the Sandy Hook story. He said, no, not at all. I don't, sorry. He said that under oath. Okay, great. Well, today something interesting happened and it showed the incompetence of not just Alex Jones, but his own attorneys. So let's watch this moment where the plaintiff's attorney asks Alex Jones about those very text messages.
Bottom left corner, is that your phone number?
Yes. So you did get my text messages. And it said you didn't. Nice trick. It's just not.
Yes, Mr. Jones. Oh. Indeed. You didn't give this text message to me. You don't know where this came from. Do you know where I got this?
No.
Mr. Jones.
So the reason why Alex Jones thought they didn't get the text messages is because he lied under oath and said, oh, none of my text messages have anything to do with Sandy Hook, so you don't need to see them. And then his lawyer accidentally sent the text messages about Sandy Hook and every text message to the attorney. So the attorneys were able to go through every one of Alex Jones' text messages and make a decision for themselves whether they had anything to do with Sandy Hook. And what do you know? Alex Jones was lying. Alex Jones was lying.
Did you know that 12 days ago, your attorneys messed up and sent me an entire digital copy of your entire cell phone with every text message you've sent for the past 2 years, and when informed, did not take any steps to identify it as privileged or protect it in any way. And as of 2 days ago, it fell free and clear into my possession. And that is how I know you lied to me when you said you didn't have text messages about Sandy Hook. Did you know that?
I told you the truth. This is your Perry Mason moment. I gave them my phone, and then
Mr. Jones, you need to answer the question.
Did you know this happened?
No, I didn't know this happened.
No, I didn't know this happened. See, I told you the truth, except I didn't. I lied under oath and said that I didn't have any text exchanges conversing about the Sandy Hook story. He got caught. But what's amazing about that moment is how the hell did his lawyers make that colossal mistake of sending the entirety of a—
So what almost certainly happened, Chad, is either you had a incompetent attorney, or they cut corners on their tech, so to speak. So that's probably what happened. Honestly, think that the lawyer just didn't want to go through the phone and separate shit out. That would be quite bad. Is this grounds for disbarment? No. What? Making mistakes doesn't get you disbarred. It's very hard to get disbarred as an attorney. The thing that'll get you disbarred is if you steal clients' money. The legal system really doesn't like that. If you steal a client's money, that'll get you disbarred because they want people to believe that you can trust attorneys with money. So if you, that's the thing. Various professional incompetencies will probably not get you disbarred. They may get you found liable in a mistrial case, in which case you might have to compensate your former client, but that's pretty rare as well. You'll get remembered eternally as a lawyer who fucked his client. Yeah, it's pretty bad for your career when people can see that you're a lawyer, that you fucked up somebody's case. So in a high profile case, you want to be seen as competent. So when people search for you, like, oh, is this lawyer good? And they see, lawyer makes colossal error, ruins client's fucking case. Like, yeah, you're probably not the attorney I want. It's the duty of opposing counsel to determine if the information shared is privileged. If it is, they have to let the other side know and not use the privileged information to their advantage. LOL, chat, so dumb. Yeah, exactly. If you watched the recess after this, they forgot the stream was still going and it was said, you mean you have all the texts, like even the ones with the senator? He smiled and said, yep. Everything on the phone for the last 2 to 3 years. There'll be months of fallout and discovery here. Oh. Update on lawyer incompetency? Oh, yeah. Alex Jones' lawyers were now arguing for a mistrial because they accidentally sent the Sandy Hook family lawyers the entire contents of Jones' phone. Judge denies the motion. In conclusion, if do something so egregiously stupid, this Sandy Hook defamation case gets declared a mistrial, was Alex Jones' lawyer's strategy. It did not work. Yeah.
Even with all of the sideshows and even with all the circus atmosphere that we're seeing in this trial, can't run away from the fact that there are hours and hours of this man, along with his co-hosts and staffers, lying and defaming the victims of Sandy Hook for profit.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that Alex Jones is guilty. And defamation happens a lot online. Like, outright defamation has been normalized in a lot of ways. There's certain communities of like Twitch streamers, for example, who just engage in outright defamation as, you know, par for course. And, you know, I think some of them should be sued, quite frankly. I think it would be good if somebody, you know, like if I was Hasan and people defamed me, I'd probably like have an attorney and be like, how much would it cost me to sue this person? Like if I was making 300 G's a month, I would set aside 100,000 G's to sue all these little lying pieces of shit that exist on Twitch. If it were me, if I had that amount of money, I would. If I had Hasan money, I'd be suing some people. I could say Hasan fucked a basketball and it wouldn't be even definite. But exactly. Remember, chat, the truth is a defense. Lawyer Mike showing his litigious nature. Yeah. Yeah. Bad Empanada is somebody who's been defamed horribly. And you know, it's because he talks to he argues with toxic people that have no value. So like, yeah, they're going to defame him. All right, let's keep going.
Because there are several families who have been defamed by this man, or the sad excuse for a man. So we'll see what happens. The jurors being insulted by him, the judge being insulted by him, multiple examples of him lying under oath, I would argue does not bode well for Alex Jones. But for anyone who might have been persuaded by Alex Jones and his commentary, for anyone who might think that he's a good guy and sometimes he gets things right, understand that this trial has made it very clear that Alex Jones knew he was lying, he was intentionally lying, and he was doing it for profit. Plaintiff's attorney also did a fantastic job in outlining all of the other tragic stories, all of the other tragic mass shootings, bombings that have occurred in this country that Alex Jones lied about, that Alex Jones claimed was a deep state operation. He claimed that the Boston bombing was some sort of conspiracy. And it's because, look, I get it. It draws an audience. People have lost faith in our institutions. I think that's actually the root of the problem here. Why is it that someone like Alex Jones is able to cultivate the kind of audience that he's able to cultivate? That is a deeper problem that I think needs to be addressed. But there's no mistake. Alex Jones is definitely a symptom of that deeper problem, and he should suffer the consequences of what he has taken part in.
Testifying. Alex Jones' testimony. Let's go.
Mr. Jones, have you been wanting to apologize to the plaintiffs in this case for a long time?
Yes,
And what would you like to say to them?
that I never intentionally tried to hurt you. I never even said your name until this case came to court. I didn't even really know who you were until a couple years ago when all this started up. The internet had a lot of questions. I had questions. And over that.
See, this is the thing about, I gotta pause it right here because this is pure sociopath bullshit, but it's also normal in our society. Just because you don't intend an outcome doesn't absolve you from the consequences of your decisions when those outcomes were knowable and foreseeable. If I push a boulder down a hill and it rolls and smashes someone's car, I could say, oh, I didn't intend to smash your car. And I may very well have not intended on smashing your car. But I know that if I push a fucking round rock down a hill and it starts rolling, it's going to pick up energy and it's going to be pretty unpredictable where it ends up. So by doing that, by setting that in motion, I'm responsible. But for what I did, the rock wouldn't have hit your car. Therefore, I'm liable for what I did. Now, there's escalating levels of culpability and intention. And if I intend to do harm, that's probably more morally blameworthy than not intending to do harm and simply causing it. But just because you didn't intend to do stuff, if what you did was foreseeable, and that's the important part, that a reasonable human being looking at the situation would have gone, yeah, that would happen if you do that. If I have a show full of right-wing crazies and I imply that parents are crisis actors to thousands of, if not millions of people, some of those people are going to take matters into their own hands. I know that. You can't claim that you didn't intend. Also, lying about someone is intent, man. It's intent to lie about them. The words didn't come out of your mouth from sleep talking. They came out of your mouth on your fucking professional news show that you make millions doing. So fuck you, man. That's not how it works. You can't prove some dipshit's intent. There's different levels of what we would call proof, right? Intent is something that exists purely within your head. And truly, you're right. It's unknowable from an objective perspective. It's truly unknowable what anyone's intent is. However, we can infer your intent through what's known as indicia. So, for example, if I wrote down on a letter, I intend to kill XYZ person, okay? And then I went and killed that person, you could say, hey, Mike, you wrote this note where you said you intended to kill this person, and then you went and killed them. It looks like you intended to kill them. Now, that note, I could have wrote that note as a joke. I could have all sorts of other shit, right? But that's a objective piece of evidence that we would use within a context of other pieces of evidence to try to infer with a reasonable level of certainty my intent. Does that make sense? So yeah, but you can't prove what I intended. That may be something that you think works, but on the legal system and what we call inference, we can infer intent even though we can never truly know what you thought in your head. Maybe in your head, you didn't want to kill that person when you killed them. But if there's a whole bunch of evidence, and that's called a failure, that's a failure, right? If we prosecute you for intent to do something that you did but you didn't intend to do, but there's a whole bunch of evidence, that would be an example of a failure of truth of seeking. But it's very hard to get 100% accuracy in any of that kind of stuff. That's just philosophy. That's just reality, unfortunately. Why does any of this matter in the case? I have no idea. His lawyer is just having Alex Jones ramble about his history so he could try to win over the jury.
Books and films, not just my books and films, but a lot of other authors.
My guess is the lawyers try to paint Alex as some sort of truth seeker who made a mistake regarding Sandy Hook. He's mapping out his career to demonstrate that he's a crank with a good heart. Heart would be my guess. Yeah, he's trying to show that Alex Jones accidentally said the Sandy Hook shooting was it was just a mistake, you know? He came at it with good intentions as a truth seeker. you know, and we need to allow our media to just accuse parents of recently deceased 6-year-olds and 5-year-olds who were murdered in a bloody massacre and who had thousands of psychotically deranged right-wingers sicked on them as if they were crisis actors. That's just part of the necessity of free speech. You know, yeah, he lied. Yeah, he called them actors. Yeah, he said it was a false flag, but he does so much good.
We'll just play a clip, give our opinion, and ask callers what they think about it. Or again, we'll say, should Pelosi go to Taiwan? The Chinese are threatening war. And I said yesterday, I don't really like Pelosi. I don't want war with China, but I think it's good she's going because we should stand up for ourselves.
Alex Jones thinks it's good that Nancy Pelosi goes to Taiwan. I thought he used to be, he used to be an anti-war guy. And now he's fallen so low, chat. He's fallen so low. Now it's, yeah, we gotta risk war with China. What a fucking liberal. Is this a situation where you need to act normal? I think, yes, when you're on trial for defamation and you're in the penalty phase, you should probably try to act normal.
Now, I mean, I can say I'm more timid, even though the head of the state police questions Uvalde in Texas, and even though they stood down for 77 minutes, I think it happened. But I've just gone, whoa, I'm going to try to leave this alone as much as possible just because they'll take what I've said out of context. But
it's not that complicated, Alex. Police are cowardly. It's not that complicated. We live in a capitalist society where the most important thing is your own self-actualization. People aren't going there. We don't have any hero. There's no heroes in capitalism. Every cop is a mercenary. Mercenaries want to do one thing: make money. They don't want to die. They're not going to die for kids. The heroic death shit is fantasy. The reality is hiding behind a ballistic shield. It's not that complicated, man.
Listeners are now mad at me because I'm not covering it when, I mean, something went on 77 minutes and the kids are begging for help and the police just stand there, and the state police in Texas say that the head of the state police says we don't know the truth. And it's because of things like that that people just get completely blown away and confused by what's going on. But now I realize that those are such touchy.
They don't know the truth because the cops were cowardly and covered up their cowardice because they depend upon a culture of subservience and utter celebrity and every police getting a free coffee at every fucking coffee shop he walks in. They like that. It's hard to justify treating them as special snowflakes when they hide why children are being murdered, which is what they actually did. It's not that complicated. It's not a globalist conspiracy or cabal. The cops are just that fucking useless. ACAB.
And more, I don't really follow the news model of covering the news. In the past I did. We still do it a lot. But now I mainly just talk about philosophy and the big picture and then have some guests on. And the show's gotten more Christian, because I'm a Christian, but as things progress, all things happening in the world, I'm moving more towards doing a self-help, life experience type show than the political show. In fact, I've been trying to segue out of this just because I think we have to change individuals. Kind of like Scarlett was saying earlier, more than we're going to change the world. We can't change ourselves, then we're never be able to change the world. And I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned a lot in that process. And I've also learned how the corporate media is able to completely manipulate a story once you're caught in it, and then manipulate other people. And if anything, I want to teach people about how that process worked, because they say I'm the mastermind that figured out how to manipulate people, and I didn't have any understanding of it coming, and now I've seen it from the inside, the way this stuff goes on. And I think only getting the individual awake and aware and not under its control is the way to beat it. And you can't just cover a bunch of news and get somebody to understand that. You can't be told about the Matrix. You got to see it.
This is why, like, you know, right-wing kooks are so dangerous, because they always walk right up to understanding things and then completely go off the deep end. It's like two people walking in a desert and you see an oasis in front of you and you run forward and you dip your head into the lake, right? Into the spring waters and you drink your fill. Meanwhile, they look and they see a mirage and they run off in a fucking different direction. That's a right winger. You two are two thirsty dudes looking for a refreshing drink, and they won't drink from the water right in front of them. They chase some fucking phantom bullshit because they refuse to deal with the reality as it is. Jesus Christ. Are liberals right wing too? Yes. The status quo society we live in is called liberal capitalism. So right wing typically refers to a position, your position relative to in the French estates, right? And at the time of the French Revolution, liberalism was a revolutionary thought, a change from hereditary feudalist privilege to market-oriented reorganization of the economy, right? Now, liberals are right-wing because that is the status quo, and they are conserving the status quo. They are conservatives of the society as it exists today. So yes, they're right-wing. Your orientation towards... So conservatives today are not conservative. They are reactionary. Liberals today are not liberal, or they are not progressive. They are conservative. Reactionary refers... and this is something that I need to say from time to time, and because people forget. Reactionary doesn't mean reacts to things. All right? I am not a reactionary because I'm reacting to the Alex Jones testimony. A reactionary is somebody who wants to return to a previous status quo. I'll give you an example. The status quo we have on racial discrimination is that it's illegal under the law to racially discriminate against someone in, say, public accommodations. I can't have a whites-only restaurant. That's illegal. That's the status quo. A reactionary wants to go back to the period where you could have a whites-only counter. All right? That's a reactionary, somebody who wants to return to the past, previous status quo. A conservative is someone who wants to defend the current status quo. That is most liberals today. So to answer your extremely short question, are liberals right-wing? The answer is yes, and that's why. Thank you for answering it much more thoroughly. Yes, the status quo is liberalism.
So in order to prepare for 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, how many hours per day do you spend on prep for your show?
I spend about 2 hours at night and about 2 hours in the morning, and then I do some research in the afternoon.
How many hours per day do you spend on general business administration as well?
2 or 3 hours.
So your average day, would you say, is somewhere between 11 hours, 12 hours a day?
Yes.
6 days a week?
Yes.
Do you depend on other people to help you produce your show and decide what you're going to talk about?
I do. I depend on my crew.
Bullshit. Horse shit. Alex Jones is not sitting there with 4 hours a day doing research. His equivalent of research is scrolling his Twitter feed or, like, give me a fucking break. And I guarantee you he has show preppers, what are, producers that are giving him stuff. The idea that he's fucking doing 4 hours of research a day or prep is horseshit, bullshit. He's lying. As far as like shilling various crap, maybe he spends an hour or two on that a day. But again, I bet he has salespeople that do all the work. He maybe reads about what was offered and signs off on it. Him negotiating his deals or shit. Again, he's lying again. So his real job every day is a 4 hour stream, 6 days a week. That's it. Which is more work than most, capitalists do. But still, come on.
What do you use the term synthetic as well as fake? What do you mean when you say synthetic?
These are a lot of military terms that I learned just by researching.
What I love about Alex Jones is he does that right wing, like pseudo military jargon. That's such a tell of right wingers. Steven Crowder does it too. These kind of soft theater kids who pretend like they're big tough army men is truly one of the cringiest fucking things that they do on the right. Ugh. They're not even like military terms that like your average grunt would be saying. They're like some nerd fucking lieutenant colonel at the War College wrote in a white paper, and now Alex Jones uses it, and it's like, oh, it's a military term. Shut the fuck up. No, it's not.
Psychological warfare, because I knew that they were using it against us. So I went and last 20 years got some of the declassified.
Yeah, they're psychologically warfaring Alex Jones, the useful idiot of American fascism. Yeah, that's what they're doing.
1996 law, the FDA has no jurisdiction over any nutraceuticals, not the ones at Whole Foods, not the ones at GNC, and not ours. And ours are private labeled, top brands that are sold at Whole Foods and GNC. We have them made by the top lab recognized in the United States. All we do is put our label on it so we know it's triple tested, the highest quality, and that's why people love it, because it is the best out there. And I'll give it to Whole Foods, and I'll give it to GNC and others. They've got the same stuff. There's all sorts of crap you can buy at a gas station out there. That's not what ours is. I mean, we buy our PQQ and CoQ10 from the Japanese. I mean, it's the best. It costs 5 times what synthetic PQQ and CoQ10 cost.
The fuck is he talking about? Buy some vitamins. He's literally doing an ad in the middle of his testimony. What a pro. What a fucking pro, chat. What a pro.
Let's talk about InfoWars, the organization. Would you describe it as organized or chaotic?
It's a mix of both, but it is the opposite of corporate. And there's no corporate culture, and there's no people are very happy there overall.
There's no corporate culture. It's very, people are very happy there overall. I really I'm such a bad businessman, chat. I'm such a bad businessman. I may be a person who I just don't get it. I don't get how people get greedy for more, you know? Like I get to a certain level and I'm like, okay, I'm probably not going to die. To just be like, I want more. I want more. It's just like, how do you do it? How do you do it? All right, let's keep going. Thanks, Lumi. Yeah, of course I do.
It would take 10, 15, 20 people, we go bankrupt, which we are now.
She told him not to say he was bankrupt. He said he was bankrupt again. He said he was bankrupt again. She specifically told him not to say that. Technically, he said the company is bankrupt. You're right. That is true. How the fuck is the company bankrupt? Because it's not.
If Your Honor thinks it necessary, I will. I think that Your Honor can review the transcript of my questions. I don't think my questions elicited that testimony. I'm sorry that that came out. I don't think that there was anything I could have done in my questioning that would have prevented it from happening. I know that Your Honor has contemporaneous transcript and can look it over. So I would urge you to do so because I'm sorry it happened. I tried to move on very, very quickly. I think Your Honor saw me raise my hand. But I can only ask the questions.
Oh, so just to explain what happened, chat, the parent, I should just explain it because it may not be, it's obvious to me, but it may not be obvious to you. I'm sorry. Basically what the plaintiff's is the attorney for the parents of the Sandy Hook children. He basically accused Alex Jones of perjury. He said that Alex Jones violated previous rulings that judge had made on certain findings, certain assertions, one of which is that Alex Jones is bankrupt. That's not true. Alex Jones is not bankrupt. But the reason why he might say that is so that the jury thinks, well, he doesn't have that much money. And so they go with a smaller number for the damages that they would owe the plaintiffs. Being bankrupt is an official legal standing that is found by the government. We have what's known as bankruptcy courts in this country, which set up by the Constitution, where you can go to the bankruptcy court and ask for protection from your creditors. And we have a whole procedure of figuring out, how much money you have, what assets you have, and then distributing that fairly among people that have given you credit, right? In a way that's set out by the bankruptcy code, all right? And then when you're in that specific protection, you cannot be pursued by creditors. And if you're found to be bankrupt, that means that, you know, there's a variety of different ways to be found bankrupt. I'm not going to explain it right now. But basically, you will get that protection, certain like assets that are now protected from being taken, right? But in a kind of connotation that we in the like normal lay world would say, we would go like, oh, someone's bankrupt, that just means they don't have any money. That's not what's happened. So he's not bankrupt from the kind of like the connotation that you and I might use in regular conversation. And he's definitely not legally bankrupt, where it being found bankrupt and having, you know, a bankruptcy trustee's protection. All right. So that's just bullshit. And the last and final most important part was when he said he was calling for sanctions. So in our legal system, if an attorney does stuff that is blatantly illegal or in violation of the courtroom's procedures, he could be found for sanctions, which means that lawyer and his you know client would have to pay the fees that were the result of their bad and illegal or rule-breaking behavior. All right? And so when you say, I'm going for a motion for sanctions, you're saying that not only is the other side wrong on the case in and of itself, their behavior at trial was unlawful. And so the lawyer himself defending Alex Jones is also a criminal, is also a rule breaker. Punish him. Punish him too. So that's what he's asking for. That this attorney just basically should be punished for breaking the rules.
Okay, so you don't really remember what you were not supposed to testify about. That's what I'm hearing, because you said, yes, I remember, no, I don't remember.
Well, I'm trying to remember.
Okay, I don't want you to try and remember.
No,
I don't want you to try and remember. You either knew or you don't.
I remember him saying,
the person who's closest to God in America is a trial judge in their courtroom. If you understand that, you will understand how you're supposed to behave. And you could think it's bullshit, capitalist crap, and you're right. But a judge can look at you and say, beat the shit out of that person, and you will get the shit beat out of you. A judge will say, gag that person, and you will be gagged. A judge will say, put that person in chains, and you will be put in chains. All right? So there is no arguing. There's no attitude. You are gonna get fucked up. And you will get fucked up hard. You can do it for a statement. You know, you can do it knowing that that's going to happen, but that is how you should understand. That's why you never want to be in court. Being in court is bad. If it's true that if you move close to the jury, you get tackled, basically there's a space in the courtroom that's called the well. If anybody ever goes in the well without being instructed, you will be assaulted. So like the idea of like in movies, sometimes attorneys like walk around and like go up to the jury box and they go over to the witnesses and No, you never do that without being first asking permission. May I approach? And explaining it. But that's what that is. So many times as a lawyer, you have to go to jail. It's expected, especially if the judge is a piece of shit. I mean, it's not a good time, man. That's not a good time.
watching part of Haslan's testimony when I was coming here, and him talking about the bankruptcy, so I thought that was totally fine. I mean, he gets to, why not just do what he gets to do?
Mr. Jones,
Yeah.
just stop.
Okay.
All right, you can sit down, Mr. Jones. If you have any reply, Mr. Bankson.
Not really.
And actually, before I hear from you, you know whose obligation it is, Mr. Reynal, to make sure that any witness you put forward understands the orders in limine, understands what he is not allowed to say because of orders that I have made before now, right?
As an attorney, it's an impossible position
That wasn't
to
the
be
question I asked you.
I know that it is my obligation to communicate Your Honor's orders. Beyond that, I think that's all I need to say.
Oh, by the way, Chad, I never explained it. Okay, so motion in limine. Before they go down to they're doing very legal shit. Basically, that just means it's Latin for at the start, I think. Is what in limine means. So at the start, I think. This is, again, my memory. Basically, it's stuff that is decided about what evidence can and cannot be in the hearings in front of the fact finder, meaning the jury, right? So you will have discussions before the trial, before the hearing, the trial, whatever happens, about stuff that the judge determines as a matter of law cannot or can be included, right? So those motions are standing orders not to do X, Y, and Z in the case. And if you do that, that could cause serious consequences, sanctions, mistrial, bad stuff. Don't do that. And its purpose is to limit, as Dennis is saying here, the evidence that is presented, to keep the evidence that would be highly prejudicial, that would be irrelevant, but highly might change the jury's behavior, but legally it's not relevant.
Mr. Jones, you may not say to this jury that you complied with discovery. That is not true. You may not say it again. You may not tell this jury that you are bankrupt. That is also not true. You may have filed for bankruptcy. I don't know that, but I've heard that. That doesn't make a person or a company bankrupt. You're already under oath to tell the truth. You've already violated that oath twice today in just those two examples. It seems absurd to instruct you again that you must tell the truth while you testify.
I say keep saying 13,
here I am.
It's 14.
You must tell the truth while you testify. This is not your show. You need to slow down and not take what you see as opportunities to further the message you're wanting to further. And instead, only answer the specific and exact question you have been asked. No
Not
asides.
every Ivy League has a law school.
The comments about discovery, the comments about the larynx or whatever it was, the comments about bankruptcy, none of those were responsive to questions. They were just you abusing my tolerance and making asides to the jury improperly, and in these two cases, untruthfully. Do you understand what I have said? Yes or no? Do you understand what I have said?
Yes, I believe what I said was true. So I don't.
Yes, you believe everything you say is true, but it isn't. Your beliefs do not make something true. That is what we're doing here. Just because you claim to think something is true does not make it true. It does not protect you. It is not allowed. You are under oath. That means things must actually be true when you say them. Don't talk. You understand what I have said.
I do understand.
You understand the instructions I have given you for your testimony in court.
Yes.
I'm not going to bring the jury back today. My staff is listening. They can let the jury go home. We'll start back up tomorrow. One more time. No asides. Do you understand what I mean when I say no asides?
Yes.
Answer only the question asked of you. Do you understand what I mean when I say only answer the question asked of you?
Yes.
You understand you will still be under oath when you return tomorrow morning
Yes.
to complete your testimony. All right. And you understand that that means you must only testify about things that are true.
Somebody asked if judges are just power trippers. It depends on the judge, but the answer I would say is the difference between them and most power trippers is you will not instantly get your ass beat by 10 people when most people power trip. Most power trip is like you only get one sauce with your 10-piece nugget, all right? A judge power trip is you are knocked out and you wake up in a jail cell.
To the best of my knowledge.
If you don't know something, you don't say it. If you're asked about your opinion, you can give your opinion. But if you're asked to relate something that's truthful and a fact, it must be truthful and a fact. Not an assumption, not a guess, not an opinion. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, you can sit down. Just to be clear, we call them motions. I don't issue motions. I issue orders. These are orders in limine and have been ordered since before this trial started.
Is Your Honor
I don't issue motions, I issue orders.
We call them motions. I don't issue motions. I issue orders. These are orders in limine and have been ordered since before this trial started.
Man, his lawyer sucks. Just like, you know, from the trial practice that I've seen, if the judge is looking at you, you're supposed to talk. This is a rule of thumb. If the judge is looking at you, it's your time to talk until you get the judge to look at the other side. When the judge looks away from you, then you stop talking. This is like basic trial practice shit. The judge is like, I need to give instructions to the jury because Alex Jones is lying constantly and bringing in irrelevant shit he's been told not to bring in. And so she's worried that the jury is considering things that they're not legally allowed to consider when they're trying to figure out how much money that Alex Jones owes the parents of Sandy Hook. The fact that whether he defamed her or not is over. He has been declared liable for defamation. He's been declared liable for something that's known as the intentional infliction of emotional distress. All right? He's been found liable of those things. That's not a question. The question is, how much money should the parents get? And what Alex Jones' defense attorney is trying to do, the defendant's attorney, is put a question in the jury's mind about his liability so that they might not give much of a penalty. So, you know, the plaintiff and the judge, they're getting pissed off because talking about whether or not he's liable, that's over. He is. The question is his culpability and how much does he owe? Alex did nothing wrong. Pray for Alex. No, he's definitely been found to have done something wrong. If he got default judgment on intentional infliction of emotional distress, that's a huge mistake. That's difficult to prove. And he opened himself up to punitive damages. He's fucked. Oh, yeah, he's in deep trouble. IIED is pretty hard to prove, and people don't like the idea. But you can be found, you could be sued for what's known as IIED, chat, or intentional infliction of emotional distress. So don't do that. Just giving your opinion doesn't mean it's not defamation. If you say, I think somebody is a crisis actor, I don't think it's real, that doesn't save you. If you say, I think you have syphilis, you don't go, aha, I didn't say you had syphilis. You know, the opinion distinction is a defamation defense. That's true if something is clearly just opinion. But when you make presentations of fact, which is what Alex Jones did, that's defamation. It's important, and I want to say this just so everyone is clear. Just because you say something as an opinion doesn't mean it would be found as an opinion in a fucking defamation case. All right? So like if I said, it's my opinion that blah, 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 you got to watch yourself. You can still be found to have defamed someone. For example, like if you're like, I think Mike did X, Y, and Z. Mike did some crime, right? I think Mike did some crime. And I got banned on Twitch, right? Because people believed you. And it was totally made up. I could sue your ass for all the months of Twitch money I didn't get because I got banned because of your lies. So don't fuck up. Are you watching the stream unsubbed? You're making income inequality worse. You are doing anti-praxis. We are the only Twitch stream that will not accept scam advertisers. And I will never fuck you over by selling you crap.